Brandon Nguyen. I will be going over Kali Linux Basics for Workshop 1 for the Red Team. So this is the what's and the how-tos. This is generally things we find important that we want everyone on the Red Team to know. It's not going to be the basics of Linux. That is something I hope most of you know, like cd, ls, how to move throughout a directory, and things like that. So let's get started. So yeah, like I said, if you do not know the basics of Linux, you're gonna have a bad time using Kali Linux. The main reason why we use Kali Linux is it already comes preloaded with a lot of tools that we use for pen test, and it's very much the industry standard. You can use other different Linux distributions. You can even use Windows if you like, but you're just going to be very limited to the amount of things you can do. But you can still use certain tools that just require you have to download it and install it yourself while Kali Linux is already pre-installed. So let's get started. So the first thing we want to talk about is SSH. SSH stands for Secure Shell or Secure Socket Shell. It's just a encryption for communication between computers connecting over an open network. So it's mostly used to connect one computer to another over internet. And the reason why it's so strong is the encryption technique that's used. It's mostly used to execute commands and move files, and it's usually hosted in port 22 or 2222. Ports we'll go into more when we talk about Nmap, but that's just something you want to take note of for right now. So basic ways to SSH into a host is the command SSH space and then the host IP address or the domain. So let's try this out in Kali Linux. So let me just open up Kali Linux for you guys. Rojan posted up a Google form that you guys should all submit your public keys to. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So on the Red Team Slack channel, you'll get a Google form like this. You have to be logged into your Cal State Fullerton email to access this form. You're just going to copy this right here. And in Kali Linux, you will run the command. So let me paste that, hit enter, enter again. I'm gonna hit no because I've already done this, but just follow Rojan's instructions and then you'll just submit your name and your key should look something like, not that. Your key will look something pretty interesting. It should look something like this. So this is my public key. I'll put that, I'll copy and paste that into here, and then I'll just give it a name, Brandon N. And then hit submit. So Rojan will add your public key into the SSH server. That way you will be able to SSH into the server. And that server should be up for about a month or so. That way people could get practice using SSH. So let's try it out. So SSH, I believe the domain will be ssh.osscsuf.org. All right, and then it's going to ask you if you want to connect to it. Just to make sure, because it's your first time connecting, you'll just say yes, and you'll be automatically uploaded. So if you get permission denied, that just means Rojan hasn't had time to add you into the system. So we will double check to make sure that, so if you do get permission denied, just Slack Rojan and he will see what he can do. Yeah, so let's try again. Yeah, so Rojan hasn't added my public key, but if we were to SSH into it, we would do SSH the host, so SSH But if you wanted to use your username, which you would simply just do SSH, your username at the host location. So let's try that. So I know my username is Brandon N at. So Rojan should add my public key now. So I will just SSH as Brandon N ssh.oss.csuf.org. All right, I'm in. So if I simply type ls, it should output something, but I don't think it will. So who am I? So it tells me I am myself, which is who I am. And so if I wanted to download a file from the SSH, I would simply type this. We'll do that in a bit, but I want to go over a few things first. So user groups, understanding the current users. So we obviously did who am I, and that should tell you the username that you submitted as your with your public key on the Google form. So understanding groups. So let's list all the groups. So we'll simply use this command grep and then group name. So let's see who's root. So grep root, and then it should be backslash etsy slash group. Etsy slash group. Okay, and so it only shows me one user. So let's see what happens if we don't put anything. And nothing. Yeah. So let's control C, cancel that out. So you have to put something here. So root, it'll give you all the root users. So there's only one root user. So let's go back. So why is this important to know who are the group users? Well, if you are able to get someone else's admin, so if you were to maybe find the username of an admin, so let's say Bill, you would do Bill at the host name, and you would do who am I, and you would want to see if Bill is a root user. So you would do grep root space Etsy group, and if Bill's name is under that root group, you know you're able to execute commands within the SSH server. And so let's find out what cat Etsy password do. So cat just means concatenation, and what it does, it just outputs the text in a file. So cat slash Etsy slash password RD, I think. Yeah, I don't think I did that one right. So let's go. So no R. So cat Etsy password. So this prints out the list of every single person that's in the servers. So here's my name, and then you'll see a couple of other people who've signed up already, and you'll see how it's broken down. So it's broken down by username, their password, their group ID, and where they're stored in the directory. So if we go back to the slide, so it's broken down by username, password, user ID, group ID, user ID info, home directory, and command shell. So what does it mean when there's an X next for the password? So if there's an X, it just means that it's stored in Etsy Shadow. So if we're running root, we'll be able to cat Etsy Shadow, but because we're not under the root user, we won't be able to cat Etsy Shadow. But if we did, it would actually print out the username and the password hash. And here are the most common hashes forms. So MDS, Blowfish, these are the forms you'll want to look at. So $1, $, that's an MDS hash. And then it will give you the delimiters of the password. So for this example, the password change was 3. The minimum is 0. So there is no minimum for the password, and there is no real maximum for the password either. And you can enter the password 7 times, and there's no inactive or expiration date for this user's password. So bash history. So if we were to cat bash history, cat dot bash underscore history, it says quit exit. So what bash history does, it will give you the history of all the commands this user has done. So obviously mine was just to exit out of the SSH server, but this is important because a lot of people don't clear out their bash history. Because this is a virtual machine, when I exited out and closed the terminal, the virtual machine cleared my bash history in the SSH server. But normally a lot of users don't realize to clear their bash history or point their bash history to a null file. So what that in turn can lead you to some vulnerabilities that are out there. Like it could give you passwords, it could give you tokens, it could disclose a lot of information that should be confidential. So finding files. So in this SSH server, there is a text file that we want to find. So these are some commands. So if we knew the name of the text file, we could just type out the name. If we knew the subdirectory, we could type it out. But we want to find a certain text file in the whole system. So let's do find, then underscore, so it checks the whole system, and then dash tag name, and then asterisk .txt. Let's find out. So it prints out a bunch of stuff, and it's a lot of permissions denied. So I won't have access to any of these files, but you can see all the rest files I have access to. So I know I'm looking for a flag.txt. That's normally how we all have it set up. So I could do another command with this. I could do bracket grep, and then flag, and boom. Gone too far, so let's. So this is where the flag is being stored. So let's copy and paste that. And so I could simply cat the file, cat paste, and it will output the file for me. Flag intro to Linux 89109. So don't think you can copy my flag. It's different for everyone. So this one is unique to me. So you will want to do this process on your own. But you can also download the file like I said before. So let's test that out. So this is the command to download a file. So let's just copy that one. Paste. So our username. So actually, if we wanted to download a file like this, we are going to actually have to exit out of the SSH. So let's quit. Actually, I lied. It's exit. And then let's paste this. So our username, so mine is Brandon N. Host is ssh.osscsuf.org. So file name, so it was flag. So I want to copy all of this. Copy. Whoops, must have hit something. Close tab. And the file name was whoopsie doops. What did I do? Yeah, so you can do, so that's how you would download it. So I messed up somewhere. Yeah. So, but that's one way you can download a file from an SSH server. But most of the time you can just cat it like that and it will output the text in the file. So, okay. So let's move on to FTP. FTP stands for File Transfer Protocol. It's similar to SSH, but File Protocol is hosted on port 21. And I believe FTP is a little older than SSH. It usually is used between client servers and on a computer network. And FTP login is very similar to SSH. So in Kali Linux, you can just use the command FTP the host or FTP the user at the host. And here are some very useful OSINT commands. So once you're able to SSH or FTP into a server or the host, these are some commands you want to probably execute first if you're doing a pen test or trying to exploit it. So we can do uname, so that would give us the Linux operating system that the server is running. It could do the kernel, when the kernel was released. It could show how long the server was up, and as well as the last time it was rebooted. So this is important because if the servers are running an old version of Ubuntu, we can probably look for an exploit for that version of Ubuntu or the kernel, as well as the last time it was rebooted. So normally people will reboot a server once it's done an update, and because most of the time companies will have multiple servers, the last time they have to systemically reboot. They have to do a time to reboot. So they'll leave one server up and another server will be down. And so Whoami we talked about, and then APList install will spit out all the services that are installed. So useful networking, ifconfig, that will give you the IP address of the server as well as yours. Ping host is normally to check to see if the server or host is up and running, and also to see if you are connected to internet. And then whois information will display who owns the domain or the name that's registered to the domain, and to list out all the ports that are open. So this will list out all the ports that are listening and on your host, but if you SSH or FTP in, you can do that and it will list that out for you too. So this will wrap up workshop number 1. If you guys have any questions, feel free to Slack me or Rojan. The slides will be uploaded in the description of the video, and you have to be logged into your Cal State Fullerton email to access any of the stuff we post. That way we can limit the amount of people who have access to our information to make sure that they go to Cal State Fullerton and that they are students at the college. So have a great day.